Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. So for today's tutorial, this is the fabric I'll be using. Then tape rule, scissors, chalk, office pin, hip curve and ruler. So I've gone ahead and fold my fabric. This is the right side and this is the wrong side. I'm going to mark on the wrong side of the fabric. This line I am marking will act as my starting point. The measurements I'm using is as follows: waist 30 inches, waist to hip 8 inches, hip 40 inches, bust point, that's for the dart, 7.5, waist to knee 18 inches. Please make sure you stop for the waist to knee, you stop 1 inch or 2 inch above the knee. Then the full length of the skirt is 39 inch. From my waist to my hip is 8 inches. So I'll connect it with a ruler. Then from my waist to my knee is 18 inches. I'll also connect it. From my waist to the full length of the skirt is 39 inches. So I'm going to also use my ruler to connect it. Then I'll add 1.5 inches that I used to connect the fabric. So I'm adding 1.5 inch that I will use to fold the fabric with the lining. And I'll still go ahead and connect it with a ruler. So I go over it. From my waist to my hip is 8, to my knee is 18 and full length is 39. So now the next thing to do is to take my measurement. Remember I said the waist I'm using is 30. So 30 divided by 4 is 7.5 plus 1 inch for that, which is 8.5. I marked 8.5. Then I went ahead and add 2 inch for seam allowance. Then for the hips I'm using is 40. 40 divided by 4 is 10. Note that I didn't add the 1 inch for that because our dart is not going to extend to the hip. So what I'll have just 40 divided by 4, which is 10. I marked the 10 inch. Then added 2 inch for seam allowance. Then on my nail, since I want a straight pencil skirt, that's a long pencil skirt, what I have on my hip, I'm going to subtract 1.5 from it. So what I have on my hip is 10 inch. So if I subtract 1.5, I will have 8.5. So I'm going to note the 8.5 down. So this is my hip where I have 10. So on the nail, I'm going to have 8.5. 8.5. Then I added 2 inch for seam allowance. And I will also mark seam for what I will have at the end of the skirt, which is also 8.5. Remember, this is a straight pencil skirt, and I'll have pleat at the back, but this is the front panel. It's at the back panel that I'm going to add the pleat. So I'll go ahead and connect the line. I'm using my hip curve to do that. Then I went ahead and used my ruler to connect from the hip to the end of the skirt. So this is our actual measurement. So I'll also connect that of the seam allowance. Remember the seam allowance, I added 2 inch for the seam allowance. This is always advisable. Do not forget to add your seam allowance. It's very, very important. Then the next is to get our dart. For the dart, what I'm using is my bust span. My bust span is 7.5. So 7.5 divided by 2 is 3.75. 0.5 inch, which is 4.25. So that's what I marked, 4.25. Because I'm going to take half inch from both sides for the darts. I also come on the hip line and also mark 4.25. But take note that for the front panel, the dart is starting 2 inch above the hip line. 2 inch above the hip line. So I connect them. And then I went ahead and take half inch from both sides for the dart, half inch from both sides. I also connect it to that point I marked, that which was 2 inch above the hip line. So I connected it. So you see we have our dart. So the next thing is I'm going to subtract 0.5 inch from the waist so that it's going to sit well on the tummy. 0.5 inch. But we're not going to do that to the back panel, it's just for the front panel. And I'm using my hip curve to connect it. Watch where I connected it from here to here. I had to stop there because if I should extend it when joining the fabric, the front panel to the back panel, it's not going to rhyme. So I have to stop exactly where I have my actual measurement, so that when joining the extra 2 seam inch with the back panel, it's going to rhyme. So you see we've gotten that. Then another thing again is to, we are going to attach lining to it. We need to add our 0.5 inch seam allowance for the waist. 0.5 inch seam allowance for the waist. So that place that we are supposed to trim, that we are not going to trim it, it will serve as our seam allowance for the waist. It's just for us to go ahead and curve it, So I'm also doing that with my hip curve. I'm trying to curve it. So I'm going ahead to cut. So I'll go ahead and get the back panel. So now we're trying to get our back panel, the back panel of the skirt. So I have folded it. Notice that the fold I had for this one, for the back panel, is actually longer than that of the front. You can see that of the front is just something like this, but the one of the back is actually longer. This is because we are going to make pleats at the back, and I don't want to add another, maybe cut out a separate pleat. The pleat will be together with the back panel. So what I did was to add 8 inch to what I actually folded. Remember that when I was folding, I used 12 or 13, okay, 13. Then for me to fold this one now, I used 13 plus 8 inch, that's 8 extra inch that I will use to pleat for the down part. which is 21. I always take note of that so that I won't waste fabric more than I should. So what I will do is to get the 8 extra fabric I added for the pleats. So I'm going to mark 8. You know it's unfold. That's 8 plus 8 will be 16. So it's unfold 8. 8. I try to draw so that my ruler will be able to connect it. My ruler is not that long. I hope you can see it clearly. I'm trying to mark out the 8 extra inch I added. I hope you can see it clearly. Let me make it bolder. So this 8 inch is for the pleat at the back. It's for the pleat at the back. So what I will do next is to the front panel. I'll place it here. Then adjust how I want the back panel to look like. Then go ahead and trim. But to make it easier for me to start marking the hip, okay, you can see the lines. So I can go ahead and use those lines to get for the back panel instead of me like trying to get the lines all over again. So like this is the hip, this is the hip, this is the nail, and this is the length of the skirt. This is the length of the skirt, and this the darts. So I'll go ahead and cut. I'll follow it this way. I'll just cut it straight, as in from the front panel. The way I cut the front panel, that's how I'm going to cut it. I'll cut while tracing that line of the front panel. So I also went ahead and used office pin to hold it so that the fabric will not shift. Please endeavor to use office pin so that the fabric does not shift. So after cutting, I went ahead and notched all the necessary places. So for this is our back panel, and this are extra 8 inches, as I explained it earlier. So what I'll go ahead to get my dart. Remember I said that for the back dart we are going to come up by 1 inch. First of all, let's take our measurement. As I said earlier, I'm using the my bust point, which is 7.5 divided by 2, 3.75 plus 0.4 plus 0.5 for that's in order to get, after taking in my dart, I will arrive at the exact midpoint of my dart, which is 3.75. So it's 4.25. 4.2. I also come here and get 4.2. Mark my 4.2. Take note that I did not actually start here from here. I started from this line. 4.2, 4.2. And I said for the back dart, I'm going to come up by 1 inch. By 1 inch. Then use my ruler to connect it. Then take half inch from both sides. Take half inch from both sides. Take half inch from both sides. So I've gotten my dart. Then the next thing to do again is to, I'm going to use 2 inch for the zip allowance. Zip allowance. Then on the hip, you know, I'm going to what I'll do is to add for my, as in, I'm going to add an extra inch so that my buttocks will be, when I wear the skirt, it's going to fit properly. You know, our front side, it's like, will I say flat, but the back side we have our bum there. So, or will I say buttocks, whichever one is correct. So I'm going to add, here I mark 2 inch, so here I'm going to mark like 2.5 inch. 2.5 inch. Note that I'm going to take in my two inch for zip allowance, so I'll be left with half inch. That's for the ass. Here I took 2. Here I took 2.5. 2 inch for zip allowance and half inch for the ass, which is 2.5. So 2.5. Then here, you know, it's going to curve like this. I'm going to take, let's say, half inch, just half inch here, so that it's going to sit properly. Half inch. Then I'll now curve it. But I'll be using my hip curve to do that. You see where this line is, and here. First of all, I'll add this. Then the next to do is just to draw a straight line. On the mirror. Note that this curve ends here, and starting from here, I'm going to pleat this, which will add as our, which will be for the pleat. This from here down will be for the pleat. Then I move. Let me draw the fabric. So I went ahead to cut. I used my pencil to try to smoothen that side. Then continue the cutting. Then after that, I went ahead to notch the dart of the back panel and also notch that of the zip allowance. This will make it easy for me when sewing, and the end of the skirts where I'll be folding the fabric with the lining. I remember that I didn't notch the dart of the front panel, so I brought it out and I also notched it. So that's that. So we have our front panel. See how it looks. And the back panel. See how it looks. This looks somehow funny, but when we are done with it, you'll see how it's going to look like. So this is it. You know, after adding your lining and the rest, you go ahead, pleat it, and you know, you have something like this after pleating. Please, if you have any question, let me know on the comment section. I'll be glad to answer your question. And also, if you want to see a detailed video on how I made the skirt, that's joining the fabric to the lining, sewing the zip, the dart, and the rest, I'm going to put the link to the video on the description box. I don't want to add it to this video so that the video will not be long. So if you want to see the video, head over to the description box. So till I come your way next time, do not forget to subscribe and click on the notification bell for you to be notified each time I make a new upload.